for joining us today for ensuring student-centered learning is at the heart of every procurement decision. You may notice that your audio is muted, and it will remain so throughout today's event. Please use the Q&A to submit questions. I am Jill Hobson, K-12 Program Manager for IMS Global. Let me introduce some of the other staff who are with us today. Karen Daughtery, who is also a K-12 Institutional Program Manager, Sandra DeCastro, Vice President for Community Programs, and Kara Jenkins, Marketing Communications Director. For those of you who may not be familiar with IMS Global, we are a nonprofit member collaborative. Our members include leading districts, state organizations, higher ed institutions, and educational technology suppliers working together to innovate and improve the EdTech ecosystem to enable better learning from better learning technology through plug-and-play integration, open architecture, and the assurances that come with IMS Global certification. Each member district has evolved their own unique strategy and approach based on their unique situation. Yet all of these districts are collaborating on the open IT and integrated curriculum architecture that enables this flexibility. As some of you may know, originally we were scheduled to have Dwayne Oughton, Executive Director for Infrastructure Services of the School District of Lee County in Fort Myers, Florida, with us today. Unfortunately, Dwayne is unable to be with us today due to their ongoing recovery from Hurricane Irma. We send our best wishes to all those who've been affected by the recent hurricanes. But now let me welcome our guest speaker for today's webinar, Pete Just, Chief Technology Officer for Metropolitan School District of Wayne Township in Indiana. Hi, Pete.
Hi, thank you very much. Yeah, our thoughts and prayers are certainly with Dwayne and the others down there, both in Florida and the Houston area, and we hope that they will be able to recover well and especially serve their students here shortly. I can't imagine what that has to be like to get ready for that. So today we have a goal of trying to help you understand at least our approach to student-centered learning and how that integrates with our procurement process here in Indiana. And I hope that what we'll be able to do is to be able to really provide something that has some concepts that are transferable to what you'll be doing in your own environments. So let's see. All right, can everyone see the first slide? The goal that we have as we think about our process, obviously, is to be able to provide students like these with some new ways to learn and hopefully ways that will be able to help them understand the material more quickly. In our environment, we do have students that sometimes struggle, and we actually have a goal of trying to accelerate learning for all of our students, and we do feel that technology is a core portion of that. So obviously you're also on this call feeling the same way, I'm certain. And so what we have done is we've provided a way for our teachers and our community to understand what we're shooting for, and I'd like to go through that with you today, as well as how we integrate digital tools into that process. So what you see here is the beginning of our approach. We call these our foundational building blocks for what it takes to be successful in a digital learning leap or a digital learning pursuit. We feel like curriculum, instruction, funding, leadership, professional learning, infrastructure, and policy all should work together hand in hand to be able to get to the results we're shooting for. We feel that that means that in a school district, all members of the cabinet need to be key stakeholders, And as you look at this list, you can see how everyone would certainly have a portion to fulfill. This is not something that can simply sit on the back of the technology leader in the district. And as a matter of fact, you'll notice that the results that we have established really are centered around college and career readiness, and we subsetted those as these items as you see here, which for our school district we felt were going to be able to define success. I won't read those to you, but you can see that what we've done is, as a cabinet, we've come together to say we are behind this. We are going to each take on our own roles, and certainly we have our school board behind us as well as all those members of our staff that have to execute on a lot of these ideas. So at a high level, those are our goals. As we spoke to our community about those, we used what we call our digital learning blueprint, which has evolved over the last 6 years since we began. But you'll notice that up in the right-hand corner the left-hand corner is the picture that I showed you on the prior screen, and that's kind of a key part of the foundation that we're shooting for. If you look underneath that, you'll notice that there's sort of a little tree, and I know you can't see it particularly well, but that is really our approach to how we scaled up. What happened is when we began the process, we started just in conversations, and we established kind of a solid, foundation for what we were trying to do with our curriculum team, and then we started to bring in certain types of software technologies that created demand to be able to really kind of go through a phase-in of, we chose Chromebooks, and one of those commitments we made was we were going to commit to a product to be able to focus on and place all of our digital resources in one place. We have called that the Wayne Learning Hub. It's just simply an LMS, but that's really what I'll be talking about for a good part of the day today. And what you'll notice is that inside of that we have digital curriculum content and all our publisher resources. We want it to be the one spot to go for teachers and students to get all their information. That sounds really great, but it's really challenging, and that's what we'll be talking about today. The focus that we have is to be able to work with a curriculum, instruction, and assessment team, and as we work with them, we're working with the teachers on what we call the 4 C's, which, if you're familiar with these, are communication, collaboration, critical thinking, and creativity. We think those are the 4 pillars, or the 4 skills that we can teach across all grade levels, across all subject areas to reach college and career readiness. And so that's kind of the overview of what we're shooting for and how we plan to get there. So obviously one of those items was cost, and of course this is about student-centered learning being the heart of procurement. So procurement means expenditures. And so we often talk about this idea of value of investment, or VOI. Now, if you're not familiar with that, there's a nice little primer on the COSIN website, cosin.org, if you look up VOI, or value of investment. But the idea is that in industry, we often see what we might call return on investment, which is based on your total cost of ownership and your profitability. Obviously, with students, we don't really see that, so that doesn't really work. But for an educational organization, we feel that value of investment is really kind of centered around, and it's a cost-benefit analysis that really kind of goes through about a 5-step process. Like I said, we start with total cost of ownership, and as we estimate the project cost. So when we think about those devices there, some little tablets, there's all kinds of costs associated with those, not just the device themselves, as we all know, but the software, the apps, the little carrying case, maybe the storage place that we put them in to charge them overnight, all the effort, energy that has to go into getting those ready at the beginning of the process, during the process, probably at the start of every school year. If we're distributing those to students, each of those items, man hours, have to figure into that total cost of ownership as well. So then we would then also calculate any anticipated savings or revenues, which of course in this situation doesn't really exist. And then we'd look for some qualitative benefits. And this is really where the key part of value is found. So looking at the district's mission, the district's goals, the district's mandates, you have to say this is of a certain value. This is how important this is to us. And if we say, for example, that digital learning is an important value of ours, now we're starting to say this is worth putting money towards. We have to align that with our district objectives set by our school board, our superintendent's cabinet, and then we want to make sure that everyone understands what the benefits are in measurable terms. And that is a difficult thing to sometimes come by, but we actually do biannual review, and we involve our stakeholders in that, and we get statistical significant data back that shows progress over time. We need to do that because we want to make sure that we're really kind of doing what we need to be good stewards of what we've been given from our tax base. And in the state of Indiana, that's especially important because we are pretty constrained on our budgets, and we have to go out for referendum. Often, many districts will go out every 2 years. So it's really important for your community to understand what you're doing and what the value is. The other components of VOI are assessing risks and then really kind of communicating out to everyone, like I said. So those are key pieces to be able to understand that the costs are worth the expenditures are worth the effort towards the goal. So the question we ask is, as we get started, as we work with our curriculum team closely, is how do we build the capacity of all of our teachers to be able to make what we call artful pedagogical decisions that might include technology as a vehicle for meaningful learning, critical thinking, problem solving, and collaborating. You can see kind of the 4 C's are kind of wound up in there. And that's kind of the key question we are continuing to ask ourselves as we continue to build out our solutions. So as we do that, we kind of are thinking about, well, what does that mean? So for the curriculum team, that little logo in the middle, by the way, is just our logo that we've created for the Wayne Learning Hub in the district. Everyone kind of sees that and knows that we're talking about our LMS, the one place where we put everything, what we call the Wayne Learning Hub or the hub. That is the core of kind of where all of that information is going to go. And then we think about what surrounds that, and you can see it's curriculum, it's the different types of instruction, learning, and so on, as well as assessment and different types of digital resources and an environment that would allow that to flourish. We think that those things are all really critical to be successful. So if we think about our essential beliefs, we're seeing a couple of things. First of all, in these little diagrams you see here, that first one on the left really just represents simple and unified login. We want to try to simplify and lower the bar on how many places people, especially students, have to log in to be able to get to what the teacher's intending them to get to. If it takes 10 minutes for you to turn on your computer, for you to be able to log in, for you to actually get to the resources, to be able to start the actual work, that's bad. And a lot of instructional time is lost. We want to try to maximize time on task. So one of our essential beliefs is this idea of being able to get to it quickly through single sign-on or some type of identity management to allow for expedited access. And we actually have a very elaborate identity account creation solution that happens very quickly and streamlines everything. Another belief is that everything should be in one place, therefore the Wayne Learning Hub, I've explained that already. And the other belief, third one, is we think that the content and the curriculum need to be in the same place. Historically, we've not done that. Sometimes originally it was maybe the curriculum is sitting on a bookshelf, printed and referenced as needed, which means maybe not that often. and the content was someplace else, maybe in a book. As we've transitioned to electronic resources and electronic access, the curriculum and the content can be put in the same place. So what we've done is we've folded those up and we've put them into the Wayne Learning Hub. So as a teacher, you'll see your curriculum there, and by curriculum, just to be clear, I don't mean your lesson plans. That's what you're creating as a teacher. That's the artful decision making that you're responsible for. This is what are the key standards that need to be met as you move through the course of the year, and what are some samples or examples of what could be done to do that, but certainly not prescriptive, in other words. And then the last piece is that we want a very simple device for students to be able to use that has a very long battery life, has the ability to not really spend a lot of time processing in the background, but helps the student get to what they need to get to. So as we think then about integration, this is where we're going to spend the rest of our time. We actually have a third-party integration guide that we provide to our curriculum instruction and assessment team as well as all of our teachers. And that guide basically allows them to understand, as they speak with publishers and online content providers, what the starting point should be in terms of determining integration capabilities that various vendors have. We all know that various vendors have different abilities to scale up to our needs or provide what we're looking for, but most of them also have a very clear kind of common solution that they are trying to provide to you. What we're really asking is for something that might be a little bit more customized if they've not worked within our LMS or if they've not worked in our state. So we start out with the first question is, can you integrate with our LMS or any LMS? And then eventually ours, we use It's Learning, as I said, which we've rebranded as the Learning Hub. And then the next question is, are they an IMS Global certified vendor? That obviously is the best case scenario. If you're a vendor, that's something we would really encourage you to do. And I'll go through the process in a second of kind of how this happens during the course of the year. But those are questions that are asked early on. And we're looking for IMS Common Cartridge 1.2, Thin Common Cartridge 1.3, One Roster, LTI, compliant solutions. Oftentimes, a vendor may have those for their customers, but it might not be quite suited for your state, and so you do need to double check that. And then we start asking questions in terms of how do students get into their accounts. And this third-party integrations guide is available to you at the, as you can see in the chat window there, through that link, which will take you to an IMS Global site that has those resources if you want to look at these in detail. How students and staff get to their accounts is really critical because of one of our values. We want them to get there fast. In terms of the answers to that, we're also wanting to know, where do students and staff find the resources when the integration is complete? And we've actually identified 8 different ways that we might have to go through integration, and there are multiple ways in which that could be displayed. Ideally, we want everything to be in our hub in the content library. But that's not always the case. So we want to have an understanding of what they've done and how that works. And then we start asking very specific questions about common cartridges, how they're tagged, what's included in the cartridges. Also, is there data collected when the content is used? And if data is collected, how do teachers get to that information? And then most importantly, can we see a demo? And once we've gone through that process, we have an integration guide, which you see there is the flow chart, which we'll get into a little bit of detail here. So whenever our curriculum team, and they're the ones that actually pursue the board approval and the purchase, they are now not just putting things in their cart and just rolling through to the checkout line, so to speak. We're asking a series of questions in procurement. And that's really new in the last 3 years, I guess I'd say. Prior to that, it was very much the way that it would work is we would bring together a group of teachers that were identified as representatives. They would sit down with whichever vendor wanted to come in and talk to us, and then they would look at all those materials, and over the course of about 6 months, they would make a determination as to which textbook or even digital resources they wanted to adopt. At this point, we go through a little bit more of a greater vetting process. So in terms of the considerations, these are the 4 big things, again, that we're looking for. Does it work with our LMS? How well do they do the integration? Is this company, this vendor, an IMS Global certified integrator? We think that's pretty important. We won't rule them out if they're not at this point, but I think we are certainly moving towards that. This is a slow shift. It's going to take us probably 3 years, and we're almost to that point. But as we get further and further down the road, we're seriously talking about not working with vendors that can't get that certification. And then we have a lot of questions about user provisioning, like I said, and also we want to see where their current integrations are, so we really want to have a reference list. And so these are some pretty critical considerations for us. So as I show you this, I noticed that we can't see that particularly well, but at the top of that kind of process that you'll see there is just the beginning of the process starts with vendor invitations. We'll find those vendors that we know are going to be able to provide us with good options, and we'll invite them to compete for our business. The next thing we'll do, so that's item number 1. The next thing that we'll do is we will check to see what the IT fit is. In other words, will it work within our infrastructure? That's pretty critical. If it doesn't, then that vendor is ruled out. The next thing we look at is interoperability. That interoperability is really what I was talking about. Again, if they can't interop to the level that we feel is best, then that vendor would be ruled out. And then we take it to the teachers that would have really in the past been at the top of this list. So we kind of go through this process now. This is new for us this year, of taking those first 3 steps that's developed, like I said, over the last 2 years. And then once the teachers have vetted that, they'll have their best choices. We'll do a final review, and then we'll move into integration phase. And speaking of which, this is that flow chart. So again, this is really, really small, I understand, but we do have copies for you out on the IMS Global site through the link in your chat window. So as you look at this, you'll actually, if you have the document, you'll actually notice it's 2 pages. Now, the reason it's 2 pages is because there's so many different ways you can do these integrations. And I will say at the top of this, you'll notice that there are a number of names that are kind of related, or a number of different colors that are sort of these different steps, if you will, that we have as options. So these are members of my staff that really have different responsibilities, and then also the curriculum team, and they have certain responsibilities, and of course the vendor is going to have certain responsibilities. And then a member of our one of our virtual learning specialists will come in to work with our LMS provider, It's Learning, and make sure that that integration is going smoothly. So you can see that that's always at the end. So as you kind of go through the process, you'll see that we start with the goal of being in the hub, and that integration is going to either be a single LTI link, access to the platform, or our preferred method, which is content in our library. But each of those has options. So really our most desirable choice is to be able to go down this path of having it be in our library and actually being able to do rostering. So that's a key. If we can find that, that's our favorite right there, and obviously what we're shooting for. And we hope that as we move through the years, more and more will be available there. But unfortunately, not everything can work that way. So sometimes it's going to be anonymous access. which is our other option over here. And that anonymous access is not going to be able to use rosters, but it's still going to be content in the library. The downside to that is that if we do collect information, for example, through some quizzes, we won't be able to attribute that easily to any student. Sometimes we can't put it in the library at all, in which case we have to move over to this way. And if we're doing that, that's going to be an LTI link, access to the platform. Sometimes a roster is going to be necessary. That's, again, preferred. And sometimes it might not be able to be possible. And, of course, that's a second option to still have a single LTI link for access to the platform, but it would be anonymous. Now, those are our preferred options. But you'll notice that there's sort of a dotted line that happens to get to our second page. And on the second page, these are some other, I guess I'd say even more traditional options. Unfortunately for these are not really going to be in the hub. So no library integration, but we will be able to do some type of identity management provisioning, hopefully, or some sort of rostering. And this is a lot of work actually on the data team side. You might notice that this is a lot more red because that's going to be true. A lot more red than this other option over here, which just had a few red portions. And the red portions are really kind of the data team, the IT team having to do some processes for us. So obviously there's many more here. And we have one option that I'll just mention, which we really don't do anything with, and this is really the most unfortunate situation, is all the way over here where teachers have to hand enter all their users. Obviously, this is not anywhere we want to end up, but that is the option that some vendors will come to the table with. We are essentially ruling those out at this point. Sometimes they are anonymous web apps, which of course are not a core part of our delivery, but some teachers will use those. Obviously, we're not involved in those at all. But in some cases, we will have an option to do access to the platform only through rosters and identity management, and those are these two options that we see to the left and to the right. Our preference, if we have to go this way, is to use identity management provisioning, but it is going to require a bit of handwork on our end. And then over here, we see that the other way we can try to do this is with authoritative single sign-on and identity management, but that is going to be really all back-end work by our data team. So that's really an overview of kind of where we're at in terms of how we actually do our provisioning and how we make our decisions in terms of procurement. We think that it is very student-centered and it is very empowering to be able to allow our staff to make these artful decisions with digital resources more and more. We're not saying that digital is the answer to everything. We have not dispensed of all paper. We have not dispensed of textbooks, but we have been moving towards classroom sets, and then digital adoptions are increasing dramatically, especially as we're finding vendors that are producing really high quality content with really deep IMS Global integrations that allow our teachers to be selective in terms of what types of tools they want to use. And actually, inside of our hub, they will actually be able to build out their lesson plans and really kind of choose piecemeal which pieces they want to put into their lesson plan. And so we might have 3 different vendors that are providing resources, and students really don't know because it's completely transparent. That's really our dream, our goal, to be able to make it that simple for the student and for the teacher to simply be able to go into the library, search for what they're looking for based on a number of different variables, state standards, keywords, the type of product that they're looking for, whether it's a game or just text or a graphic, and be able to just insert those into their lesson plans to be able to, as we again say, artfully create a lesson that they think is most going to engage their students. We use this process not just for our traditional brick and mortar schools, but also we offer virtual school options and blended school options. And so we're fully invested into the digital learning realm and have spent quite a bit of energy to try to figure out the best way to make the purchases most effective for our staff and, more importantly, our students. So I don't know if we have any questions or not. I haven't had a chance to look.
Well, Pete, thank you so much. I just want to say that I really enjoyed hearing your presentation. Some of the things that, I took away from it, just immediately, certainly number one is the importance of understanding that concept of value of investment, and how much Wayne has been able to think about everything in one place. It's clear that you've spent a lot of time and a lot of care to be able to move towards getting everything into the Wayne Learning Hub. And I'm just going to pause here and say again to all of our folks who are participating, we want to encourage you, please ask your questions through the chat or the Q&A. We'd love to be able to have those. And Pete's ready to fire away at questions. And certainly it seems like you've spent a lot of time to create a process to move more and more of your options into the content library inside your hub. It seems like to me that part of that has to be bringing all of your stakeholders together and helping everyone understand the value of doing, more review to get there. Certainly in my previous life in the district, it's not always as straightforward for folks. So I'm just wondering if maybe you could talk just a little bit about how you have collaborated across your district within divisions to help all these other stakeholders understand some of the importance of priorities like, being IMS Global certified, like being able to integrate through the hub directly.
Yeah. So we think that a key component of being able to get the word out is and really to be effective is to blur the lines between departments a little. In other words, especially with us in this conversation, the lines between curriculum, instruction assessment folks, and the IT folks have often been very clear, creating clear disparity between the two teams, perhaps, or at least delineation. And almost a wall could be the situation in some districts. We've worked really hard to blur those lines, and so what that means is that I have a member of my team who is responsible for going to all the critical curriculum instruction and assessment meetings, for being our interface with the assistant sup of curriculum or academics, and to be able to report back to our team. They have a member, an administrator on that side that is a curriculum director that has the responsibility of attending any important conversations on our side. And so when I say blurring the lines is we are in each other's meetings. We are in each other's business, and what that means is it's a little uncomfortable sometimes because what will happen is, we each have our perspectives, and we have to be able to step back and say, oh, I get what they're saying too. And so maybe we need to be a little bit more malleable in how we've defined this and how we should work through the process or how we should set up something technically. And on the other hand, they need to look at us as more than just IT folks. The e-learning team is all made up of really excellent teachers. They're educators, and they are some of the best we have. They're not just IT folks. And of course, if you look at my IT services team, yeah, they're just IT folks, but they're not really the people that are having the conversation. So we have to have a mutual respect, and I think what that's brought about over the last several years is an understanding of how the curriculum team can use its resources. For example, our instructional coaches that are out in our schools report to our academic superintendent. Well, she realized that they could really help us in sharing the information, so they became a critical part of the briefings that we had, the information that we were sharing, the focus that we're putting on the hub is the one place for everyone to go for all these digital resources. They really got heavily trained, and then they worked alongside our e-learning team to take key stakeholders from all the schools. We brought them together in the summers, and we started building content. And this actually started maybe 5 years ago, but it's increased in its fidelity and quality as we've brought more and more team members in, like the instructional coaches. And what we're doing then is we've got a clear message that we're issuing non-verbally, that, hey, these two teams are working together really closely to provide the best resources for our staff. The staff then have the responsibility of taking that and running with it. And so let's go ahead and start building some sample courses. Let's start building some templates that people can use. And that really started to create a hand-in-hand relationship even in the schools themselves. So not just at the Ed Center, but in the schools, teachers are seeing the IT team as a component of how they can deliver better and make these artful decisions.
Great. So, Kara, have we had any questions come in?
Yes, we do, Jill. And Pete, this is for you. Does your content require hardened DRM protection?
That's a good question. So we work with all the digital rights holders to be able to, obviously provide these solutions. I think I can answer this as yes, we have DRM protection. When we say hardened DRM protection, I'm not sure that I'd say it's bulletproof, but I do think that we are definitely heading in the right direction on that. And I think that digital rights is something that we're certainly working to protect. And honestly, it really has a lot more impact on the teachers and day-to-day in terms of our blocking of sites that have DRM and things like music and video streaming services are really where I think the battle has been hardest. Not so much in this arena because we are working directly with those who hold those rights. I hope I answered that question adequately.
Okay, thanks, Pete. And another question, how about the return of results data? For example, assessment data, progress data, etc., from your teaching and learning tools or content back to things like the gradebook and other reporting tools?
That is the nirvana we're shooting for. That's been quite a bit of a conversation. I'd say that we are just at the beginning stages of that. There's a number of challenges in that that I'm not sure I've seen anyone be especially successful at overcoming. And so we're just part of, I think, a bigger group that's trying to figure all that out. We have not focused on the assessment component quite as much, and part of the reason for that is because we are actually, this is kind of a little off topic, but to answer the question, we're actually building out a teacher data dashboard that's based on EdFi. EdFi is not used in the state of Indiana, so we're actually kind of spearheading an effort at the district level, and then it's moving to the state level. But that is actually something we're rolling out this year. So that dashboard would be the place where teachers would be able to see assessment information, but it is not yet that granular. Our goal is to have the hub be the place where all those assessments are also taking place, but I would say we haven't pulled that all together yet. So if I look at if I walk into a bunch of random rooms across the school district, I'm going to see a lot of random ways that, well, seemingly random to me, ways that teachers are doing assessment, digitally and otherwise. We don't have a solid strategy yet on how to make that happen long term, but that really is, I think, the thing we're starting to focus on as we build out that dashboard. How do we get more granular information into that? And that's really our hope, and we're just not even close to that at this point, but we're certainly shooting for that.
And I'll just tag on to that. It's not a part of what we're talking about today, but to say that IMS Global certainly is focused on that. And with One Roster 1.1 and beyond, we think we're moving towards solutions for being able to return at least gradebook and assignment level data back to a single gradebook.
Yeah.
So with that, let me turn to a question about cost and with your school board. You know, as you're making these decisions, making the decision for the best product that best fits all of your needs, what kinds of conversations have you had with your school board and superintendent to help them understand that the cheapest price isn't the only consideration in determining that cost of ownership?
Well, I will say that we are certainly blessed with a board that's had longevity and also has a lot of wisdom. They do not believe that the cheapest option is the best option. They believe that we need to look at what our core requirements are. We need to do our due diligence in having a clear needs analysis of what it is we are looking for. And as such, sometimes the best solution might be one of the more pricey solutions, but in the end, the total cost of ownership on some solutions that might seem to be pricey up front is oftentimes, less expensive over time. So I think that it's really been great to be able to have that perspective from them, and then from the superintendent and the cabinet, we also have kind of taken on that same perspective. We definitely don't get the Cadillac most of the time. As a matter of fact, with my team, I have what's called a good enough practice, which is to say we need to look at what the needs analysis is. Then we need to look at what options are out there, and we're going to see a range. Then we need to find out which one of these is good enough. In other words, where do we draw the line? And we won't accept anything below that because it's not good enough. But where the line is, and even slightly above it, that actually might be just fine. Or do we need additional feature sets where we do have to go to the more expensive options because for our value of investment, that's worthwhile. That's going to pay off. So that's how we think about those procurement decisions and kind of what our, I guess, our culture is here.
Awesome, thanks. So, a little bit of a pointed question here. How has membership in IMS Global played a role in the way you procure EdTech resources?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for us, we first got started really because I have a friend in Houston who was really committed to IMS Global, and as we were talking about interoperability, he asked me why I'm not a member. And I said, well, it costs some money, and it's not in the budget right now. But as we started to get deeper and deeper into our digital learning blueprint, it started with really conversations about what are the best generalized tools. So, we ended up deciding that the Google Suite, which at the time was Google Docs, and our LMS were really kind of where we wanted to put all of our energy and effort. After we had done that for a while, and teachers were creating a lot of great products inside of our LMS, and we've been using an LMS since '99, and we had our first online school in 2000, so we're not new to the LMS, but we had shifted to a different one. And one of the things we realized was that we were now shifting from paper resources to digital resources, and they were actually coming at us fast and furious and really unorganized. And we had a lot of those kind of on my little flow chart, all the way to the right options: teacher hand entry, anonymous applications, which we knew we did not want to do. So that was the point at which we said, all right, we need to get our ducks in a row, and we really need to sign on with IMS Global and start learning. And really that first year of learning was what kind of generated this integration flow chart that I walked through, based on all the different conversations we'd had, whether at a conference or virtually, or with our friends at Houston and Bartholomew and other places across the country. So I would say that the networking abilities, the pure resources that are available to members have really helped us to move into a whole different set of conversations, a whole new era towards this adoption process and the success of focusing on the students and learning, rather than, and we've had that focus, but now we have to deliver a whole suite of solutions from a whole large group of vendors, and that's how we decided, hey, we need to have it all in one place. But how you do that, you have to be standards-based, and obviously IMS Global is the standard to use. So rather lengthy explanation, but that's kind of our journey.
Thanks so much. And I'll just take one moment to circle back around with my partner, Kara, to make sure that we don't miss any questions that may have come in while we were talking. I don't think there are any, but I'll just double check.
No, Jill, we don't have any other questions for Pete or for you, but I do want to just remind everyone that we will post the link to the recording of this session on that web page that was already shared, where we have the downloadable documents that Pete showed in his presentation.
Well, perfect. And so I just want to say again, thank you so much to our guest speaker today, to Pete. Really appreciate your being with us today. And as we are wrapping up, with IMS members from 50 school districts and growing, including half of the top 10 largest school districts, and representation from 45 U.S. state departments of education and over 180 leading K-12 suppliers, our collaborative is leading the effort to rapidly advance an educational technology ecosystem where students and teachers have better options for digital tools that work together and result in more effective teaching and learning. You can see some of the logos for our member districts represented here. Our innovative leadership networks work together to produce resources of benefit to the entire K-12 community. And you can access these resources at imsglobal.org/K12. And we encourage you to visit and use those resources. These resources include recordings from previous webinars and related things from those webinars, case studies, articles, videos, and more to help districts of all sizes begin to transition to a fully integrated ecosystem. Information about opportunities to collaborate with IMS members is available, and procurement resources, including such things as RFP language and checklists that districts can use when procuring digital platforms, apps, and tools, is specifically called out and available as well. Ensuring that your educational technology tools are IMS Global certified is the best way to establish a plug-and-play ecosystem that allows all of your tools and content to work together. If you're just starting out, you should review some of the resources IMS Global has developed to help you know what to ask for from your vendors and what to include in your RFPs, IMS RFPs. IMS Global offers assistance to our members to help or guidance determining your needs. Be sure to check out the product directory. You can see that pointed out here in this screenshot from the website. The IMS Certified Product Directory contains the official listing of products that have passed IMS Global interoperability testing and certification. Visit the product directory to see our certified products. We want to invite you to our next webinar, A Better Way to Connect Academic Standards and Competencies Through Digital Delivery. That's coming up next week. We encourage you to go and register. And also, keep in mind that with the next webinar in this series is Closing the Gaps to Improve Student-Centered Learning. So you can also register for that, and that webinar registration is open as well. You'll find all of these available through our events page. Some related resources to today's webinar that you might want to take a look at include our One Roster checklist and RFP language, as well as our Learning Tools Interoperability or LTI checklist and RFP language. And you can see the URL here for getting directly to the page where those resources are available. And finally, as we just wrap up, check out those two resources that I've just mentioned, and be sure to go visit the webinar detail page to gain access to all the resources that were shared during today's session. Thank you so much to everybody for participating in today's webinar.